My family is part Aboriginal Australian. I'm Aboriginal Australian, but I was raised as an Italian German.
Right.
My culture was taken away from me again. One thing I think as well that I think like a lot of people forget to acknowledge as well, my family is part Aboriginal Australian. I'm Aboriginal Australian, but I was raised as an Italian German.
Right.
My culture was taken away from me again.
Yeah.
So, there's that conversation that's not being had as well in the background as well.
Wow.
There's that conversation that I think, needs to be had, that it's not just my culture. A lot of children's culture is being taken away from me. And, my siblings have grown up with language. My siblings have grown up with culture that I haven't. My ideals, my whole culture system is completely different compared to my siblings because I haven't grown up with my culture. I've grown up completely different.
Yeah.
So there's that conversation as well that needs to be had with politicians as well. How are we going to safeguard our children's culture so we can safeguard their culture coming up in the future?
Wow.
Yeah. That's a big part. You hear that all too often, about just not acknowledging, culture. I don't know, from working in that field, that it's such a big part of, community, community and culture is such a big part, because it's not just a mum or dad, it's auntie, it's uncle, it's grandma, it's granddad, it's, the whole community coming around, so the support network is huge. And, that's what they bring up. Like it's the whole village that brings up children. So it doesn't matter.
It really is.
Yeah.
And it's sad. Like I see that my siblings are so close to my grandparents, and I never understood why people are close with their family, because I've never experienced that. So it's something that I think we miss out on, just the little things like learning how to be and just stuff like that.
Yeah.
Do you now know, like, did you say you're 25? Did I get that wrong?
I'm turning 27 this year.
Yes, sorry, I just underaged you. So
yeah, that's all good.
Yeah. Did you like with your culture, and when you discovered that, how long did it take you before you actually discovered that about your heritage and your identity?
It was, I think it was about around 10 or 11 where my foster mother actually started taking me, because we were involved with HACs, Aboriginal docs, for a very, very long time before HACs disintegrated and didn't exist anymore. So she actually took me to a lot of cultural events, and actually good on her for doing that, and actually tried to give me a little bit of my culture, tried to expose me a lot to it. But unfortunately, because of her age, she still grew up with a lot of that prejudice. And unfortunately, I was raised with that prejudice as well when it did come to my own culture.
Yeah.
So I was raised with these really weird ideals. And then here I am being exposed to a culture that I'm being told that's mine, but also being told, that this isn't right because it's not white. Like it's biggest mind death. Like God bless her for trying. Like, but it's very hard.
Yeah, very confusing for 11-year-old. To try, even an adult. It's very confusing, let alone a child. So that's very hard. In terms of I suppose one of the hardest experience that you've had through your care experience, how did that sort of shape you into the person that you are today?
Oh, I think it's all shaped me. Like every aspect of care, I think, has shaped me, and I think I'm more willing to actually stand up when I see certain injustices, or I'm more willing to kind of stand up for the little guy because I've spent my whole life being a statistic. I've spent my whole life being a number. I've spent my whole life falling through the cracks. So, you know, being a medical student and going into, you know, aged care facilities and working with disability people and stuff like that, I've been able to show them advocacy a lot more than I think a normal person can, because I truly understand where they are coming from. I understand what it's like just to be completely written off because of the title.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's made me a better human being, but also at the end of the day, I still probably would have rather not gone through it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Yeah.
Harmony, can you just repeat that last sentence that you just shared? That was really powerful because, sorry, there was a buzzing in the background, not from your end, our end. So
yeah, you know, even though that I've you know, got so much experience and stuff like that, I still would have rather have not gone through it. Like I always say, you know, we're quite lucky in care because we're given the opportunity to look outside the system, to see that certain lifestyles are not okay to live. But once we're taken away, we're not given that opportunity or those resources to break that system and to break that cycle. So then we just repeat that cycle again. In a way, it's almost like they're creating the next wave of criminals, the next wave of kids in foster care, because if you really look at that statistic, you know, up until, even though community services had nothing to do with me after the age of 17, up until 25, if I had a child, they could have been involved.
Yeah.
And then they could have come in and removed that child, and then I was part of that statistic again, even though they had nothing to do with me and were providing me no support or community.
Yeah.
So it just shows that they're more worried about creating this cycle again instead of breaking it.
Yeah, that's right. We are wanting to highlight what you're saying and just put it on the map. It's so important because we can read textbooks, as others have said. Tiffany said to me, like, sometimes she feels like people are reading out of a textbook, and that's in the mental health, you know, system. But as soon as somebody comes in with a lived experience and has that voice from and authority, I guess I say authority not in the mean sense of like someone standing over you, but they have a voice because they've got something to say that's gold, that's profound, that's never been said before in front of that young person, and it changes their lives. It literally changes their lives. It's not like it just here I'm going to say this because this works in this dynamic. It's Harmony or Tiffany or Erin or Fraser saying it. Actually, this is how it is.